Yeah, that was a wild start to another Free Matt podcast. Um, couldn't hit the record button in time, but wanted to thank you guys for joining us. It is the Free Matt podcast. I am Matt Freemat, the MC of tonight's festivities, and the man to my celestial east is a man that we call General Patrick Flynn.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in and bullshit with us. Grab a cold one of whatever you drink, whether it be beer, soda. We do not care. Just come one, come all. Let's have some fun.
All right. Let me see. To explain the Free Map podcast, if you haven't been around, haven't been here, even though it does seem long and rambling, it does get somewhere.
Sometimes.
We discover things on occasion, like Christopher Columbus, or I don't know. That's that guy's been wiped off the pages of history here. Anyway,
yeah, his holiday might be renamed here soon.
Indigenous Appreciation Day. Like if you're an eighth of an Indian, you only get like an eighth of a day off. Fuck you. Anyway, so yeah, on occasion we do delve into social issues, but mostly we're a libertarian roundtable style discussion. We look at various articles and newsworthy events. Sometimes we have to dig deep and find them, but we discuss, we lampoon, we laugh, we
basically just talk about whatever. And sometimes, like, we also try to kind of go most places in podcast year, there's like, let's talk about what's relevant today. We kind of are like, yeah, but you hear that every day. It's almost like it's shoved down your throats. So we may hit some highlights of what's in discussion, but for the most part, it's what actually just things we find that interest us. Sometimes it's about what's going on. Other times it's completely unrelated to what's going on. We just find it fascinating. So come along for the ride.
And before we start, there was one more thing we usually have to get out of the way. In the blue corner, training in Las Vegas, Nevada, weighing 235 pounds.
It's a good weight.
From the mean streets of San Pedro Sula. It's General Patrick Flynn.
Hello. There's my intro. But I am nowhere near 235. I just wish I was sometimes.
No, he's just a really, really cut 235. Look at him. Well, doesn't even have to try. Look at that guy. Fucking Wahlberg, prettier than Wahlberg. Look at that guy. Man, in prison, people are begging him.
That's shit. That is one guy that's actually, he was a far better actor than he was a singer.
Feel the vibrations.
Exactly.
Anyway, folks, let's get on with the rat killing.
Squeaky, 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 Mickey.
Oh yeah, here we go. For the articles for the week of July 30th, this foul year of our Lord 2020.
Foul year.
Stolen from the great Hunter S. Thompson. Ooh, we have another one from Reason.com. Give credit to Bonnie Christian. That's with a K. That's kind of awesome. Oh yeah, let me see. Trump said, you don't have to drop bombs on everybody. He's right. The president's accidental vision of a war-free second term. Oh yeah, and that was June 29th for you knuckleheads. If y'all need to look it up. We'll leave a link down in the description. Or YouTube.
Down where?
The description.
Down there.
Yeah. Down there in the fun zone. No. Let's see. Asked by Fox News host Sean Hannity last Thursday to detail his top priorities for a second term in the White House, President Donald J. Trump descended into an incoherence remarkable even by his standards. At the end of the ramble, though, he said something interesting. I have great people in the administration. You make some mistakes, like, an idiot like, and this is in brackets, former National Security Advisor John Bolton. All he wanted to do was drop bombs on everybody. You don't have to drop bombs on everybody. You don't have to kill people.
Dun dun dun.
As Ms. or Bonnie goes on to say, that bit about Bolton, excised from the babble preceding it, has the seed of an idea that really would make historic second term. Stop bombing people. Make good, finally, on your promise to end our endless wars.
Yay!
Miss Christian, or Bonnie, goes on to say,
Bonnie Rotten?
oh, Lord, don't start. Technically, the song Sister Christian would apply here because her last name's Christian. You remember Night Ranger?
Mr. Christian, won't you do, do, do. Yeah.
You don't have to do everyone.
Isn't that the song that everybody always misnames as Motorin?
Yeah. And you can make up your own lyrics if you forgot it.
Yeah.
Something rhymes with right.
Exactly.
I will put a link to, hopefully I'll find a snippet on YouTube of, this is Boondock Saints 2, and he's listening to that song. And he's singing along, and he doesn't know the lyrics. It says, the United States has been floundering in Afghanistan for 19 years. We have been bombing Iraq since 2003, Pakistan since 2004, Somalia, sorry brothers, since 2007, Libya since 2011, Syria since 2014, and Yemen since 2015. Smaller U.S. military interventions. It is so difficult to know what to dub a war anymore, are ongoing in various African nations. U.S. bases pepper the Middle East with thousands of troops at the ready to initiate, escalate, or stumble into a conflict. These wars do nothing to help the United States and much to harm ordinary people who have the misfortune to live where Washington decides to fight. American withdrawal from these conflicts would not spell their immediate end, but U.S. exit is a necessary condition for peace.
Necessary condition for peace.
Even if it isn't a sufficient one. It's very inconvenient, but it's a start. Let me see. The appointment. The second strength of Trump's anti-bombing comment is its achievability. Speaking of constitutional procedure in Washington, is increasingly farcical, as in a farce. But the president's constitutional role as a commander-in-chief does include the authority to end wars. The power to initiate conflict is given to Congress with the intent of slowing reckless rushes to violence, but there are no such barriers to ending military actions once initiated. Trump can stop bombing everybody at any moment of his choosing. He can withdraw troops whenever he likes. He could get started now. Why wait for a second term? That brings us to the idea's third strength. It would make Trump's many professions of interest in reforming American foreign policy.
You got it.
Nailed it into truths instead of indefensible lies. Like the three presidents before him, Trump pays lip service to restraint in U.S. foreign policy. He criticizes the length, cost, and humanitarian consequences of our wars. He promises to bring American forces home to negotiate great treaties to abandon futile nation-building projects. Yeah. Yeah. Nation building is bullshit that chicken hawk or chicken war hawk people do. It's bullshit. It's bullshit reasoning.
It is, and it's also, in my opinion, it's not within our quote unquote interest. I hate that word because you can make anything in America's interests. I feel as a country, America has always been this bastion of independence, individualism, and hope that you'll be given the opportunity, and I do stress opportunity, to pursue what you want to do, not be the world police, not be involved in these regime changes. Not every place is meant for a republic or that kind of deal. I feel we overstep our boundaries when we do things like this. It goes against our principles at a core level.
She goes on to say in our snippets here that Trump has always sent mixed messages on matters of war and peace. Part of him sees war as a drain on American resources, yes, a distraction from domestic issues, yes, and an opportunity to showcase his self-declared deal-making expertise in its resolution. I will say this much about a lot of people understand about the ego and the balance of the balance of the self. There's certain things like when your ego is oversized and you're out of balance with the other sides of your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Conscious. It's hard for me to say that. When things are out of balance, there's certain benefits. I say there's certain benefits of having one side bigger than the other, and there's like having you massive ego, and there's downsides. I will say this much, that giving him an opportunity to do something, usually you have to appeal to his sense of self, and that
Right.
gives him an opportunity to feel good about his decisions.
That makes sense.
Oh, let me see. That Trump, the vengeful Trump, who is the angry archhawk Bolton, has publicly embarrassed him. I think that's a misprint. The vengeful Trump, who is angry, the archhawk Bolton has publicly embarrassed him, is the Trump whose jabbering to Hannity accidentally stumbled into a good second-term priority while casting about for something Bolton would not like.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the equivalent of this blind squirrel has found a nut. Now go store it.
I brought this up about previous presidents, the conservative ones especially, that a lot of people would say, well, you seem like you lean conservative. And I've told these people there's nothing conservative about what they do. They always say they're the people who they revel in watching the war from a newspaper. They aren't in touch with anybody. And I even said that about John McCain. Fuck the fact that he was a POW in Vietnam.
Well, yeah, well, he was also the guy that messed with the UFC, so fuck him on principle.
Well, and that's another. We're going to skewer him eventually on that about when it comes to business and business and I call commerce. But the thing is that it could appeal to President Trump when he likes to stick his fingers in the eyes of people who he outdid, and he would like to be able to do something like that. Kind of remarkable, like telling Mitt Romney he couldn't win. He beat Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney goes,
What do I do? I just spent all this money for a job interview.
Yeah, and the thing is, throwing money around, and he had a bunch of other people that staked him in a presidential election, and he lost because he has no personality, and they're like, he's just a chicken hawk like the rest of these fuckers. And he, like a lot of people I've said, even a lot of pro-military people I've met in the conservative world are chicken shits, like Ted Nugent and Wayne LaPierre, and there's a couple others that couldn't be bothered to volunteer for military service. Lee Greenwood, fucker. Yeah, thank you. You know, Lord, let's get off of this. Like a like a like a cheap whore at a third-rate strip club. Let's get off this.
Okay.
Woo! It's a shame that
Abrupt stop.
yeah, it's a shame that that's all his comment appears to be. A president who spent 4 years not killing people would be an extraordinary president indeed. Only in America.
It really would. I mean, if you think about it, even Clinton, he had his things he did too. So if you had somebody to actually get out of all these wars, that would be like a complete 180 from what we're used to. It's like I can't remember one single solitary time when America was not in a war. I am 36 years old. We have been at war somewhere in my lifetime, and it hasn't stopped. It's crazy.
I don't know. Technically, I think there may be maybe 1 or 2 years that we haven't sent the military. We've sent the Marines to South America. We send them to Cuba. We send military all over around the world. And there might have been a couple of years we haven't had our military doing something like dealing with other people's insurrections or
Basically being the world police.
Team America, world police.
America, fuck yeah. Here we come to save the motherfucking day now, America. Fuck yeah. Highly advise everybody to go YouTube that just for the shit of it.
Because Team America, world police. Durka, durka, yeah. Durka, durka. It's just funny because I love that movie, and I really wish I would have seen it and really been able to consider it. I've changed over time, and I see some stuff that really, especially movies like that and other things that I could have looked in the past and say I've changed a lot and had these grandiose dreams of things, and I didn't see the movie for what really is, and I probably should someday thank those guys for making that movie. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Next on the block is this was an Associated Press piece. They didn't say who it was, but it was Washington Times, and that was July 1st, 2020. And if y'all gave a crap and don't have a calendar, that was a Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It says, yeah. Sheriff vows to deputize gun owners if protests turn violent. That's not too far from where I used to live, folks. But
that's one reason why I put it in there this week.
Green Cove Springs, Florida, home of the Florida man. A Florida sheriff says he will deputize, with a T, not a D, every gun owner in his county to put down any violent protest his deputies can't handle alone. Clay County Sheriff Darryl Daniels, which is fun, gave no indication in a 3-minute video released Wednesday that any demonstrations are planned in his suburban Jacksonville County. Daniels also said he would protect any peaceful protest, but added that if anyone starts tearing up Clay County, that is not going to be acceptable. That was a quote, by the way. And here's another start quote. If we can't handle you, I'll exercise the power and authority as the sheriff, and I'll make special deputies of every lawful gun owner in the county, and I'll deputize them to this one purpose, to stand in the gap between lawlessness and civility, said Daniels, sporting a white cowboy hat as he stood in front of 18 deputies. It's actually really dope, by the way.
I'm really liking it. The theory, I don't want to say theory, but the intent behind it's a better word.
The next paragraph is a juicy bit that I wish people would, know about. There's a long story behind this guy, but he's a hoot. It says Daniels, who is African American, said in the video that his department has a great relationship with his residents. But if you come to Clay County and think for 1 second we'll bend our backs for you, you're sadly mistaken. The second you step out from under the protection of the Constitution, we'll be waiting on you and give you everything you want. All the publicity, all the pain, all the glamour, and the glory for all that 5 minutes we'll give you. Yes, I think it's very poetic. Here's the irony is the little tidbit we didn't have added. Why he's a hoot. It says he is under investigation. He won, challenged by 6 opponents. He is under investigation by the federal Department of Law Enforcement. That's like ALEA, but for them. After his former employer, the JSO, which I've been harangued by in my life, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, announced last year he had an affair with a coworker when he was running his jails. Daniels, who was married, was accused of later having the woman falsely arrested. Whatever. Look,
well, the part I like about the article is the idea that it proposes, meaning is everybody's talking about right now, which, like we said earlier, sometimes we actually do talk about what's going on in the world right now. You hear these magic words called defund the police. I, for one, don't think it is defunding the police is as bad as an idea as most people think, because I actually think the private sector could probably do it more efficiently and better. I also think that for the existing police that you have, if there is a problem in said county or a said area, then I believe that you should get the actual citizens to take care of that problem itself through the right chain of command. I feel this is a good way to do that.
A lot of people don't know that in areas, and this was 18 and early 1900s, that men in the community, and not to pick on ladies, men in the community were often called up by a sheriff or a constable to actually, in being not press ganged, but more or less drafted to go chase after an escaped prisoner, or
almost like a militia. Dun dun dun.
And here's the thing, that they would go and they were called up to handle that. And you fast forward and you look at a fire brigade. They would literally go and say, wake you up and say, was like, hey, assholes, we need everybody to handle buckets. We got a damn fire. And yeah, you and half the damn neighborhood in your long johns, you and the Flynn boys out there putting a damn fire out. You're like, I'm not a firefighter. I'm like, you asshole.
Today you are, right now you are. It's kind of like
it's your neighbor's place.
Did you ever see the 13th Warrior? It was an Antonio Banderas movie. In my opinion, it's very underrated. But there's this thing in this movie when Antonio Banderas plays this Middle Eastern aristocrat kind of person, and he's not really a warrior. And he's about to go into this fight, and he's like, I'm not a warrior. I don't know what to do with this. And the guy that's with him, he goes, shh, very soon you will be.
But here's the thing, that in that situation, there was insurrection and stuff like that. They're like, even today, I was like, it does happen. And I know people are like, well, that's not realistic. We'll call the National Guard and do this. And I said, in a position like that, there's a point where people have been known to call uh, they called volunteers.
Yeah.
When the power flickered, I'll give you a perfect one. Where I'm from originally, the power flickers, and they had not only had teenagers, they had volunteers. They have a volunteer program, and it's they're like a not a Voyagers. It's like Boy Scouts but cops. And there's guys out directing traffic and shit like that. And yeah, that's it's already a system. There's a program, but I've seen it where they had people volunteer who were not in the Voyagers or whatever, the Pathfinders or whatever they're called, out there
Yeah.
directing traffic. And you're like, well, that's minor league, Matt. It's like, no, but there's people.
But
It's,
as minor league as that may be, that is still a stepping stone into the right direction. It's, I say Jacksonville because Jacksonville was or Florida, wherever it was, that was the name of this article. And I'm going to, did it say Jacksonville or was it somewhere else?
well, it is a neighboring area. Jacksonville, Florida is mostly Duval County.
Okay. So what county was this in? I want to get the name right. Blake or
Clay.
Clay, CLAY.
Yeah. And,
okay. Basically, what I mean, though, is Clay County should be able to solve Clay County's own issues. Clay County doesn't need the National Guard to do it, in my opinion. If they organize it right with the community leaders and work from the ground up, I believe it's possible. But I also think that that same train of thought from Clay County all the way up to the highest part of government, it starts at the local level. I don't care what it is. That's just my opinion.
I wanted to mention that I think it was the James gang that was ultimately stopped.
Jesse James?
Yeah, it's like the Jesse Younger gang. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe
Not to be confused with the bike maker.
Yeah, that's hold on, just give me. Had a reason to believe that one of the places they went and they had a run-in with people that the town's members all got together with like the local sheriff and they were waiting for them. And I think, hey, I'm not going to say what I wanted to say. There was a firefight.
There was a firefight.
Yeah, it's.
Get the reference, people. You can do it. You can do it. I'll give you a hint. It's a movie. It's a movie.
Because, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that happened. It was, they mentioned about, townspeople getting together and like they.
You know where I want to go with this.
Oh, here you go. I'm a really bad quote. I don't have a good one here. I'm gonna just hoof it and read it off of the Wikipedia. It said, and this was in Minnesota. Minnesotans joined posses and set up picket lines by the hundreds. After several days, the gang had only reached the western outskirts of Mankato, which is out in the sticks, when they decided to split up. And there's different stories and interviews that kind of are shit here. It says the Youngers and the Pits remained on foot moving west, and they ended up in a swamp. And 2 weeks after there was a raid, in the gunfight that followed, Pitts was killed and the Youngers were wounded. They surrendered and pleaded guilty to murder to avoid execution. He said Frank and Jesse secured horses and fled west across southern Minnesota. And this was inside the border of the Dakota Territory. I think that's the Indian Territory. In the face of hundreds of pursuers and nationwide alarm. And I guess they escaped, but kind of fell apart. But people, they got together and they chased people down. There was people got sick of their bullshit. And, the banks getting tipped off, and they're like, chase these fuckers around. And somebody says, well, we don't need that. We have cops. And I said, look, you don't pay. Nobody wants it. I'm going to tell you a dirty secret. One thing, you pay a set amount of taxes, you get a set amount of police. And it's really up to them, since you don't have a contract, what they do. But when you hire your own security, or you actually physically pay out of your pocket, yes, you heard me, like a subscription fee, you would have more control over what kind of security do you have. Well, I think it is a burden of living in our society that you could be called up to be a responsible member of a community, and you would be press ganged. I know nobody likes it, but fuck it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I always say the freedom of association drives, behaviors and things we do. And I've said this about people who didn't volunteer for military service. No offense against people who can't pass a physical. But what I said about somebody like Lee Greenwood or Wayne LaPierre, that the people, you can easily say, point them out and say, you're the chicken shits. It's kind of like Red Foreman from 70 Show, who made fun of Bob for only being in the National Guard. And he badmouth other people that were like, you didn't do shit, And I'm one of the same ones. I was like, if I didn't see you out there chasing down the Flynn gang, I'd probably say, like, you were sitting there on your ass not doing shit. Says, if you're hurt, that's one thing, but it's up to you. It's a world you live in, and you shouldn't bitch when you don't do shit about it. So anyway.
Right. Of course, I say that every 4 years when people vote too.
Oh yeah. They voted for a guy who was on TV, but anyway. Oh Lord. Well, hey, do we have any parting words?
Not really. I mean, I just think it's most of your problems, whether they be state, local, all the way up to whatever, I always say, and regularly, deregulation is usually the answer. You can defund something and still, like you saw in that last article, find additional resources in your own community. It's possible. It will take some organizing. It may not be easy, but it can be done. You don't need the government to do it. You can police yourself. It's just you have to get with your community and try to do it in a organized way that the community will accept.
I want to say this was I don't want to think it was Compton, but it was in an area outside of like Long Beach or a place like that. And the Bloods chased Antifa out of their neighborhood. And you would ask me, and they're like, well, they're a gang, man. I'm like, well, so are the, legally speaking.
So's Antifa.
Yeah. Technically, Salvation Army, unarmed people, technically they're a tax scheme. I mean, they are a church legally, but like the Elks Club is a great example of a gang. And you're like, the Elks Club, they do all that volunteer work. Oh yeah. The Elks Club, they're a gang. But it's funny because, well, I don't see the Elks Club patrolling the neighborhoods. But you know who does in places in California? The Bloods. I was like, I'm not making fun of them. I'm not repping or anything. I'm literally saying that's what they were doing. And they're like chasing people out of their neighborhood who had no business being there. And I said, when the police are not available to do things like this, people in the community volunteer. Is it to the best, or these people have the training police do? They generally don't, but they have an opportunity to. And yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, let me see. Let's get inspirational parting words. Yeah, come on, let's just roll with it.
Rolling. Oh, nope.
Lord.
Get that damn song out of my head. Cut,
Guys,
redo, retake.
guys, I want you guys to be happy. Please find a reason to smile. Find a reason to get on with your life. And I know that sounds a little trite, but I'm serious. A lot of disappointing things in the news. Don't get swamped up in it. Anything else, Patrick Flynn?
No, definitely try to, I know this is going to sound cliche, but stay positive. Focus on that, because right now everything is so negative. When you focus on the positive, you get to actually be different. So you get to do two things at once. You get to be different and spread positivity at the same time. So that's kind of a double awesome to me.
Sounds good. Folks, please have a good day and take care of yourselves.
Holla!